the month. Oh, you got your done.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. City Council, Monday, June 13th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Dave Anderson, here. Carl Broberg. Jen Mazias. Mary McGrath.
Here.
Tom Nimas.
Here.
Karen Novacek.
Here.
Laura Tulowitzki.
Here.
5 out of 7 present. 4 this time.
Thank you. And next item is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jerry, you're so good.
I ain't putting it.
Okay, our next item is approval of minutes from the City Council meetings of May 9th and the Board of Review from May 25th.
I'll make the motion to accept them.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Tom and a second by Karen. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of monthly expenditures via roll call vote.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the monthly expenditures as reviewed. Second.
We have a motion by Karen and a second by Mary. Could we do a roll call vote, please?
Laura Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Karen Novacek.
Yes.
Tom Nimas.
Yes.
Mary McGrath.
Yes.
Jen Mazias. Carl Broberg. Dave Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Our next item is public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to speak during public comment, please approach the microphone and we can grab that for you if you'd like. Tony, do you mind grabbing that to make sure that's on?
Hello, can you hear me? I just have a very quick comment and maybe get a little clarification on something.
And if you could just, I'm sorry, state your name and your address, please.
I'm Emily Statesman. I live at 103 West 3rd Street here in Washburn, and I also have a business at 123 2nd Avenue West, Mary Mermaid Maker's Market. And my question is about the sign ordinance that's in since the city filing came through. And we were told that if we don't have a business on Bayfield Street, we cannot advertise on Bayfield Street. However, there are people that are putting these sandwich board things up there, and they don't have a business on Bayfield Street. And I've been told that that's illegal, and the steps are you have to complain about it, and then the city council, I think, goes to them. It gives them 30 days to remove the sign. And by that time, the event center has already had their event, so they get 30 days of free advertising, illegal advertising. And now I notice there's another sign for another business that's not on Deerfield Street. So my question is, can there possibly be a shorter time that they have to remove those signs? Because, you know, I'm trying to go by the rules, and it just kind of makes me mad when everybody else is breaking the rules and they're getting away with it. So, that was my question. Or should I break the rule and do the same thing, which I would feel very wrong.
So technically, this is not a back and forth time. This is just time for you to state
Oh, okay,
your opinion. It'd be better, I think, to talk to staff
okay,
where you can have that conversation back and forth.
okay,
Just the format of public comment is such that you can make your.
okay. Yeah, so my comment is there's illegal advertising going on Deerfield Street. And I just wanted to remind people, you know, maybe the businesses don't know that that's illegal. But anyway, that's it. Thank you.
All right, yes, absolutely. Thank you for your time and for your comment. And just so you know, that's an occurrence that happens everywhere in the world.
Yeah, either illegal or it's not, you know.
Yeah.
It's either enforceable or it's not.
Please.
Okay, I'm Catherine Erickson. I live at 126 West Bayfield, and if you look out the window, you can see the sign we're talking about. They were putting it in my yard. I complained to the police. I brought it over to the police station, and they let it go for 3 days, and I think maybe they gave them permission to put it on the sidewalk, but everything, like she said, everything I read on the city website says also like to complain about, you know, Warren Nelson and friends and stuff, which is only a day of. And it's, you know, it's gonna fly around or something, but it doesn't belong there. And the other thing I wanted to know is, when are you guys gonna start working on the ATV rules? And snowmobile ordinance?
So again, this is just time for you to give your comment, and so you'd like some follow-up on that issue, on the ATV?
Yeah, because everything I read on your website and what I get told by the police station are two different things.
Okay. So, if you can contact staff, then they can get back to you, so email or phone call is best.
The question is who? Nobody says they are in charge.
Always start with Scott Hoover, or city
Okay.
administrator.
Okay,
And his contact info is phone messages when you call, or it's also on the website if you would like to email.
Okay.
And he'll make sure that you get a response.
okay.
So thank you both for sharing your comments and observations. Anyone else here for public comment?
Scott, is this one I was talking about? I've never done this before.
Certainly.
It's not too scary.
My name is Megan Collins. I live at 338 today. So I'm just learning about it. It greatly impacts where I live. I live right there, and the road from the map that I saw. It's a little bit hard for me to tell. It looks like it definitely impacts a lot. But so I guess you're saying there's not a question, but I guess I do have questions. I just would like to understand better. First of all, is that a done deal or a possibility? Kind of were other options looked at in traffic flow that don't impact anybody's property? And I'm not sure kind of what to do next, if it is, or what the next steps are around that.
Thank you for coming tonight. Since that item is an agenda item today, the council would be able to open the floor to get your input on that item.
Okay.
And that's when those questions will be addressed.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. Anyone else for public comment? Or do we have anyone online for public comment? Okay. With that, we will move on to mayoral announcements, proclamations, and appointments. I don't really have a lot of announcements at the moment, other than we did get a verbal confirmation that we will be receiving a $5,000 Bayfield County Health Infrastructure Grant towards the tennis court project. So one box checked of money needed for that project. So thank you to Bayfield County for recognizing the possibilities there for promoting health and wellness through that project. And also just wanted to mention that we do still need applicants for the library board. If you know of anyone that's interested, we are looking for someone to serve on that board. Someone had to not come back for their reappointment because their job is taking them out of the area. I don't know if Laura has any insight into that library board that you want to share, or words of
Writing myself a note.
oh, but we need someone to serve on the library, so spread the word.
Okay, right.
And then I do have one proclamation tonight. And since it is only one, I will take the time to read it. And I will also be doing a reading at the music, the Wednesday night music in the park on the 22nd. I will do an official reading that evening of this proclamation as well. So this is the Community for All proclamation, whereas Washburn's social, economic, and collective physical and mental well-being is predicated on our community's ability to be an open, inclusive, and diverse place to live and work. And whereas a community's values are not only determined by its elected bodies, but also its residents, families, business owners, nonprofit leaders, community organizers, religious institutions, and schools. And whereas human diversity can be defined as differences in race, ethnicity, nationality, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical and or mental capabilities, and religious beliefs. And whereas the city of Washburn recognizes diversity, inclusion, and equity as essential to positive and healthy lives, and is committed to ensuring people of all perspectives and experiences are welcome and feel safe in our community. And whereas the city of Washburn is welcoming and inclusive to all residents and visitors alike, no matter their age, race, color, national origin, religion, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, disability, or socioeconomic, familial, or veteran status. Now, therefore, I, Mary D. Motiff, Mayor of the City of Washburn, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the City of Washburn as a community for all, and will continue to promote an environment that accepts, celebrates, and appreciates diversity within the community, while condemning any hate-based activity, treatment, or discrimination due to a person's protected class. And I call on our partners in government, residents, families, business owners, nonprofit leaders, community organizers, religious institutions, and schools to do the same. Thank you, and thank you to Kate Stolp for helping me edit that. And then our next item is an appointment to the Harbor Commission. I would like to recommend appointment of Michael Wright, and you should have a copy of his application. We did have 2 applications, this is the one that I am recommending appointment to. I met with Mike. He has grown up with boats all his life, and he has been wanting to get involved in public service. As some of you may know, he ran for school board, and that was a very contentious race, and he did not get elected to school board. And he was very excited to see this opportunity open up. He has been serving on our zoning board of appeals for a number of years and has never met. And so he's hoping to get on something that does meet and where he can help give his input and share his expertise. He's also a property manager by trade. And so I think his combination of background and experience would serve him well on the Harbor Commission.
Mayor, I would move approval of Michael Wright's application to serve on the Harbor Commission.
Second.
We have a motion by Karen and a second by Dave. Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to our next item, discussion and action on conditional use permit for agricultural support services in the light industrial district at 1454 County Highway C, James Levine petitioner. And this is in tab 2 of your packet. And this is something that has gone to the Plan Commission where there was a public hearing. And there were some concerns expressed at the public hearing, but in our discussion of that, we did not see any problem at Plan Commission with this application. However, James was not able to be there that night, so we certainly could have a motion on this to open discussion and then invite him into the conversation if anyone does have specific questions. But we would need a motion to get us going into discussion.
Mayor, I move approval of the conditional use permit.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Are there questions or discussion? With a conditional use permit, just to note, this is a very, there's a process where you go through and look at certain things, and if it meets all those criteria, then there's not really reason to not approve a conditional use permit. If there ever are concerns or issues that come up, we can always withdraw the conditional use permit if there were substantial issues that come up. Does anyone have any questions about the operation at all?
Could anyone speak to some of the complaints and concerns brought forth during the public hearing? And if they were addressed, and
He was mainly noise, right?
The fear is noise.
There was concern, there wasn't a complaint in terms of something that had occurred. It was potential of noise, traffic, and I think that the Planning Commission, and they can speak to it better than I happen to be in the audience, but I think that the Planning Commission kind of vetted those issues and felt that at this point, not having any tangible complaints, there was no reason to not approve a conditional use permit.
And even with the conditional use permit, Mr. Liddy would still have to follow the noise ordinance that's, in our ordinances. And so if issues come up, they will have to be addressed. But since the operation hasn't started, there's, it's more of a concern of something that could be. And so without having anything concrete, there was no way to address an issue, those concerns at this time.
In truck traffic. I think that was the.
Oh, there was a concern about truck traffic, and there aren't going to be trucks coming back and forth. It's just your own transportation, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe a 1-ton pickup, 1-ton dump truck, that's about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But not every day or every week or any
No.
frequency like that.
This is not gonna be an everyday thing.
Okay, Tom?
If I remember correctly, when we were talking about this last time, you said that was a bandsaw operation?
Yeah,
That should be real quiet. Those are not loud at all.
Can you speak at all to the, if you don't mind coming up for
Sure.
that, to the level of noise that you anticipate?
yeah, the sawmill is a portable sawmill. The thing weighs about 600 pounds. It's just small. It's got a 9.5 horsepower engine on it. And I think if anything, if there's gonna be a noise, it'll be cutting the wood, you know. And my hours are basically is whenever I got some free time. That's basically what it is. And that, you know, the neighbors next to me, they've already come up and I've showed them what I was gonna do, and, you know, if anybody else ever wanted to, I'll show them. And it's not gonna be a big operation. I think last year I bought the mill a year and a half ago, and maybe I might have sawed 100 logs with it. You know, 4 hours on that thing at a time that's enough for me, and not that often, so. It's just, I don't buy the logs. It's basically, people, you know, they have projects and stuff, and they have to do some clearing and stuff, and that's why I get them. So it's not gonna be an everyday thing. It's a hobby of mine, and I need a place to do it, so. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else have questions?
Okay, yeah, and if, you know, the church or anybody has any, you know, I wanna hear about it, and, you know, and I'll work with them. It's, you know, so, okay,
Sounds good.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is discussion and action on proposed improvements to Bigelow/West Holman Lakeview Drive intersection at 8th Avenue West. This is tab 3 of your packet. And this is referring to the temporary reroute where the DOT will be paving Holman Drive as our preferred reroute option. And there is a turn, there are 2 turns there. And maybe Scott can speak to this a little bit better, but there's a concern of slowing down traffic, or I see Jerry there in the audience. And you know, when I saw the details of this proposal, my concern was immediately to the property owner there, of course, and how this might, you know, get pretty close to the house. And I know there was some discussion at the meeting today, talking about the other options that were considered. And so, I don't know, do we need a motion to start discussion on this topic? So that we can work through all of those details.
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Okay, do we need a motion before we open the floor?
You can open the floor, but in order for council discussion to happen, there should be a motion to approve
Or deny,
yes.
one way or the other, just to get us going. Sorry, before the
I'll make a motion to approve, the DOT's reroute.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second. Then, motion to open the floor. Is there a second to open the floor?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. With that, do any of the counselors have questions or comments? First, Mary?
real curious as to why it is so close to a home as opposed to the west side. That's
The flip-flop?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let Scott answer that, because I asked the same question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the beginning. Tony, can you pull up the? I have this stuff already. Not that, you want the map, right? I want the map. So, and we do have Mike Stoffel, our engineer, who's online as well to discuss this. So, you had it. There we go. Okay. So the issue here that we're looking at is we know that Bigelow and we know that Holman Lakeview is going to be the detour route for the first phase of the Highway 13 project in 2024. So when we have traffic that's heading towards the east, they will need to turn, go down, and then proceed along Holman Lakeview Drive. But keep in mind that this would be paved, and that would occur next year. And then traffic that's heading in the other direction, they will need to make a right-hand turn and then a left-hand turn at this location. So there is inevitably going to be some degree of backup of traffic making this turn, because you have to do this jog. And so imagine all the traffic that is currently on Highway 13 will be traveling down this area. So in discussing this, the question is, well, can we smoothen that out? Can we try to avoid some of those turns and backups and whatnot during the project? And then going forward, the city will have a new paved Holman Lakeview Drive. Does it make sense for the city to basically have this route like this in the future? Is there a benefit to that? Is there going to be more traffic along the lakefront, with better access for all of that, and so forth? And that's really the question that is on the table today. And so in looking at this, we did look at two basic options. The first option that we had kind of looked at came down into West End Park, crosses the trail here, and then would join up with this. Then these are really the only two options that we have, because we have utility poles, power poles, and everything else in the middle, and we can't really adjust 8th without significant more expense. However, with this southerly path, the cost estimate to the city on that was going to be significantly more expensive. And what was that? You had that document pulled up there, Tony. What was that? 164,000. 167. There it is. So that is the estimate if that was the standalone project to do that. So if we can go back to the map. The other option that we were looking at here is to redirect on this side and then come down over our stormwater basin and the ATV trail here. There would be a culvert that would be put underneath this, and then we would connect with Holman Lakeview Drive. So it would come here. Ms. Collins, who is in the audience, and we discussed, this is her house right here. And so it would be definitely closer to her house. This is showing right here the edge of the right-of-way would nick the corner of that property. The city would not need to claim that right-of-way in that location, and we have done that in the past, where we just have a smaller right-of-way than typical, because this is normally a 66-foot right-of-way that would be measured here, the road width. I believe, Mike, if you have that at 24, is that? I'm looking at that correct.
24-foot paved with 3-foot gravel shoulders.
Okay. And so that's how we would do that. So that is really kind of the question. The cost of doing what was proposed here is significantly less to the city. If this was a standalone project, we're looking at about $75,000. If we were able to do it right away, and we can do some of that work in-house and utilize a contractor under an existing contract, we can finagle that a little bit to probably get that down into the neighborhood of about 35. So that kind of summarizes the issue. One other thing that I would point out, we do have an existing encroachment with the existing Bigelow here. The corner of this property is actually on private property, but we've had that for years, so we're probably in a case of, what's that called? Adverse possession again. So the southern route would alleviate that. However, you know, it's going to affect either Ms. Collins' property, or it would affect us. You know, we would probably lose a campsite or two here. This cost is significantly more to the city than the northern route. But that is the basic summary of the issues with the.
Scott, why not sweeping though? Can't you sweep in that open field area on the left?
Sweep
I
through.
mean, come over more and
Yeah.
going down.
Yeah.
Is such a curb necessary?
Because that's going to be even more expensive, because you have to have 8th and Bigelow here hit at a perpendicular angle, otherwise you're going to have a very awkward intersection.
Like everywhere on Washington?
Well, that, and I don't know, Mike, if you wanted to explain more of that would be probably the even more expensive option.
Correct, because you're getting into realigning both 8th, or both ends of 8th. 8th coming down from the south to realign it to come in, and 8th coming up, going north as well. We need to miss the power poles. And so there's a power pole right at the corner of 8th and Holman Lake. So we would have to miss that, and the construction cost would be quite a bit more, because we're dealing with more pavement, more grading in order to, more length in order to do that. So the shortest length project is taking off from the east side of the existing roadway. We would build that potentially this summer and barricade it so that it's closed. And then the DOT would come in, add their portion of the gravel and pave it next fall when they do their project. So the cost to the city is less, because we can build it and not have to open it until the DOT. If we had to, sorry. If we had to build across that intersection, we would have to build it back to receive traffic this year. And we wouldn't be able to leave it sit until it's needed for the detour route, because we couldn't close it for a year and a half.
So let me ask the question, is there any way to temporarily during the construction, close roads without having to stop. So that it would just, you would have to take the turns, but you wouldn't have to stop necessarily.
So what you would be suggesting is that we would have to have
A temporary
stop
closure,
signs
yeah. Well,
on the north, for any southbound traffic on 8th
correct.
at this intersection, and then stop signs here. The vehicles making the turns would have the right of way.
That's my proposal. Don't spend the money. Keep it like it is, because, and this is a small thing to consider, but my question in my mind was, if you make that all one road, do you still call it two different things? Does it become another road? You know, if we were to go with this reroute and make that a continuous road, is it Bigelow or is it Holman Drive, or does it just change in the middle of the road?
Intersection.
Just that, not that that matters, but, I just, and I guess if the council does want to consider the proposed route that's up there, I would certainly hope that, especially if we can save money on it, that we could add in some screening, and plant some bushes there or something that would, but it's pretty close to the house. You know, like we were talking about, we would lose a campsite there. Well, it's about the same distance from that camper to the right of way that it is to the right of way. So if they have to lose a campsite,
Here, 35,000 estimated cost for the, I'll call it the northern route. But what would be the cost for the southern route if we worked on it this year? Has that been costed?
If this was a single project, that would be $167,000 as an estimate.
I understand that.
Have we looked at what our portion of that would be? I would say no, because we would not be able to complete that as quickly, because that's going to be a little more complex of a project with the elevation difference that has to be done there. So
the substantial savings on the northern route from 74 to 35 estimate doesn't hold for the southern route.
yeah, not at this time. And the other issue with that is I can scrape together the 35 for the southern route. We're going to have to borrow money to do it.
Thank you.
Tom,
I have a question for Mike. Is there any way that northern route could be flattened a little bit, or is that power pole too close? To give the homeowner a little bit more space.
It could be flattened more, but the reason that it's tying in at the location as it is that's the center line of Bigelow and 8th. So we match the center line, so when you them and that, when you pull up to them and go, everybody wants to go straight across if they're going straight across. And if they're offset, they have to turn in order to continue.
The question was, has anybody thought of what it would cost to put a noise fence, being shrubs or trees, to protect them from noise during the build?
Trees, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, would be a few $100s at most. Arborvitae.
Depending on what we go with, I would think that, if we're gonna put a hedgerow in, for, some kind of sound and, visual blocker, I think we're probably gonna be looking at, what, 2,500 to get something adequately in there that would be,
Right.
blocking it adequately.
Yeah, to do what we're looking for it to do.
you would want something that would be mature
Yes.
at this point, because.
Something more mature,
We
more.
don't have time for it to grow.
Right.
Mary, did you have one?
So I'm very curious to find out, does Bigelow end there or is Bigelow mapped out? And has Bigelow been vacated and who owns it? Because I just lived through offset, wrong, marking everything in the other end of town, and I'd be real curious as to. I mean, it's documented that I vacated Omaha, but when they just worked on that, their work did not acknowledge my, so it had to be redone. So that just happened a few weeks ago within the last 3 council meetings. I'm curious as to that and how much the homeowner may or may not own of what may or may not be Bigelow.
Okay, so in an attempt to answer your question here, and this is a little convoluted and do understand that, you know, I'm some of these maps which have changed and it's not quite right, but it does appear according to owns, was part of that original plat for Bigelow to continue up along here. And then this was the railroad right-of-way to the south. There was also a separate mill street that had come up, which is vacated according to that, which ends there. Bigelow goes up to, I believe, 4th, where it then would come to an end. That's according to that plat. Now, I haven't looked at how wide of a right-of-way that is on there, but you would be able to see that going right there.
So Holman Drive is not platted as a road on the master plat?
It is, yes, it is.
Oh, it is. It's
Holman is a
utilizing-
separate road.
Okay. Interesting.
So according to this, Bigelow still exists on the map as owned by the city.
I don't have any evidence that to the contrary of that at this time. I can't say because it gets complex with that railroad right of way there.
I was the homeowner. I'd be talking with you, but as citizen, but I think given the closeness of all of this and to buy a home and say, holy great, Highway 13 is coming in the corner of my backyard, I'd be looking to go to Batesville County and find out if there's any paperwork having to do with vacating of anything on Omaha. And then, of course, you found mine on the file that you weren't privy to prior to that.
Through record.
Yeah, through the records rather, right? Okay.
Yeah, I found your vacation.
Right.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So the question is, do we want to put a permanent road right next to a house?
You don't.
I have, since this came up and I was aware this might come up, I did some research into this. May be able to provide some insight as well. City purchased or took that section of property back in 2018. The prior owner had it and didn't want to continue paying the fire protection services fee.
The corner lot.
Yes, that corner lot where this is going through. And I believe the discussion at that time was potentially this could be used as either with the trail right away, with the trail there, not having to deal with another private property owner's ownership of that or whatever else use the city would have. And the second issue regarding a permanent roadway, you can authorize, and there is authority for the Department of Transportation to do a temporary roadway for detours as necessary. That could run through that city parcel as well. And it doesn't, in that point, it doesn't matter whether the roadway was vacated or not. Statutes give that authority, if needed, to run those detours over whatever property is necessary.
But would it be paved then?
Yes.
If it's a temporary?
Yes.
Okay, Tom?
That was gonna be my question. Are they gonna pave this so it's temporary? Because I know where the state has done work on the highway and they rerouted traffic. They have paved it and then once it was completed, like the bridge over Boyd Creek, they went and ripped that all up and seeded that. Would that happen here?
The plan with the DOT is that they would have to pave Holman Lakeview Drive. So
Correct.
if you did not do this, if you left it as it is today, and we left this jog in here as we call it, they would pave from this point all the way until we join back up with Washington. They would pave that, and then at the end of the project, they would look at any of the wear and tear on that and have to reestablish that for us. That's was
So
part
what
of
I
our
meant was-
agreement, and leave it.
What I was talking about is this jog, on that north jog.
Okay,
Are they going to leave that permanently or are they gonna tear that up?
no, if the city would decide that it wants this is the arrangement, is we need to put the base course down and it would be permanent. The DOT would then put the final base course on and blacktop it for us.
And it would remain.
And it would remain forever.
That was my question.
Laura,
So I have a couple of questions. One,
can you use your microphone
okay, this one?
or steal Tony's? Yeah, just pull it closer to you. There you go.
We can't see on this map where the power poles are, but you say that we can't go where there are power poles, but I'd like to know where they are first off, and what responsibility, who has, the power company or us, and at what cost, if we needed to go in place of, or move a power pole.
What does that
So
look like?
there, Scott, I don't know if you can point to the one on the corner. There's one right on the northeast corner of 8th and Holman Lake.
It's right here.
So, and then the next one is almost straight north of that camper.
Yeah, it's right.
Northeast of that camper, right on the edge of the right of way.
Okay.
So if we were to disturb those, that is a high voltage transmission line. To require movement of those poles would be a large cost because they have to have their poles spaced at a certain distance. And so it would probably, if they remove one pole, they would have to put two back in its, that they impact the, let's say a truck goes through there. They have to maintain a certain clearance to the ground. The other thing that we have right in that corner
Which corner?
and telephone lines right in that same corner where the power.
Would, but I had assumed that the reason that Bigelow coming in from the west is jogging north, without having to lengthen this whole reroute and having that extra cost of a whole new line, why we couldn't widen the Bigelow Street on the south side, further south, and bring Holman Lakeview Drive further north. If that's not possible, because that's where you're saying that power line is, it would at least knock that jog, what do we call this, that jog, you brought it up, Mary, reducing the jog, having a stop sign, it doesn't seem like a big deal, and it hurts to slow traffic down anyway, as we always talk about. Yes, as stated, there's a holy free, so Highway 13 is going through my yard, but I mean, you can see on this map that it's happening to so many houses, and it is temporary. So I think.
So I could design a solution that misses that property completely and shifts the intersection south. In order to do that, I would need to impact the roadway on the west side of 8th Avenue. which from an engineering perspective is not complex. It's just,
Can I just point out, I'm pretty sure there has been a reroute this season in Spooner that had a pretty substantial jog going on in multiple places through a residential neighborhood, and
I drove through that.
they're surviving,
I
right?
ended up on 70.
Do we
I never
really?
did get back on. So I went over to 35.
And it's a state highway that goes through there. So I guess I just keep asking the question, do we need to spend this? Do we need to change the road, or can, it's just a temporary situation? Or make anyone miserable, or lose a campsite.
And I know this isn't, I don't know what I'm supposed to talk
And the
about.
floor is open, so go ahead.
Okay, just to point out that I've lived there for 2 years, pardon me, watched traffic for 2 years, there are no traffic issues there. You know what I mean? Like,
Current, yeah.
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, it's not like there's, right, I understand that, but you're talking about the temporariness of it. To me, that spending all that money for either direction doesn't make a lot of sense. It makes less sense when it's through my yard, but none of it makes sense considering it's not like there's a big problem here that.
Else have, okay, first Jim.
Is there gonna be a lot of truck traffic going through there, or you're detouring the trucks another way, or how's that gonna work?
Detour is officially routed a different way.
Okay, for deliveries, so I mean, there's gonna be.
Deliveries, yes, local deliveries, there will be trucks for that.
So I, section there for a semi truck pulling a 55-foot or, a trailer. That's gonna be a heck of a turn for this guy.
And maybe that's the biggest concern for the DOT? Local
Well,
truck traffic?
That and then for us, there will be backups during the project. That's to be expected.
But again, like you pointed out, those kinds of backups happen in communities all the time, and we all navigate them, curse a little bit as we're driving them, and then it resolves, right? I mean,
That's my concern was when the coming down across, I don't know if that can be, if we don't do that, if that can be widened there a little bit, because some of those campers are big, and those if it's Class A motorhome, they're gonna have one hell of a hard time getting around that corner. And I wanna make sure that Home and Lakeview Drive gets paved, because that should have never
The entrance or make a, I don't know what, a separate turn lane or? Yeah.
the right-hand turn from Bigelow to South 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry brought that up before as well. That is you're kind of curving north just to turn south. And yes, that can be widened there to facilitate a better radius. Yeah, that makes that turn easier, but you still have an S curve.
the way that can be widened.
That power pole is that close, and all of the fiber optic pits. Tony, if you could bring up the county GIS, it's a much clearer background.
To the south.
Sure, give me a second.
Or if I could share.
If you have that, you can share.
Who's gonna get there quicker?
That curve starts so far north, I'm bringing that center line down. I mean, it reduces that narrowing of Bigelow at the end. It curves north anyway, which doesn't look sensible. Which reduces the curve already, with that powerful instead of having to pull a corner around the powerful. Are we, since I heard someone mention, or since I heard you mention it going through your yard, I wanted to clarify, is this actually going through her yard? I mean, you
No.
verified that that's.
Technically, it is not the right of way, would be at the,
Oh, you can see it
at the
right
property
there.
line.
All right.
There's a shadow. So, yeah, there's the one power pole, there's the other power pole.
It seems that would reduce the length of that rebuilding if you were using the existing Bigelow Street, just moving it south. So it straightens out Bigelow Street, leaves it wider. At the end, is that right, Mike?
Say that
Yes.
You mean like chop this off a little so it comes straight in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or more.
Make that corner
Make a
white.
turn.
Because right now it tilts up,
Right. If there's nothing in the way,
just come right here. Curve
That's
down.
Yeah, almost like a turn.
Except for that, the goal is to make it a perpendicular approach. That's,
sure.
Well,
So,
if nothing else, you just come straight over. And so it's down a little bit, if that helps at all. I don't know if that helps at all.
so you're gonna have to show him what was.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't see where you're
Coming
pointing.
over
Oh, there
this
you-
way, tell me if I'm right, Mary. So coming straight over this way for
Right.
center line.
Bringing the center
Yeah,
line
and
down.
that's where I was saying that from a intersection perspective, straightening Bigelow as it comes into 8th is beneficial. Getting into having to rebuild Bigelow is more costly than just building new on the east side and leaving West Bigelow alone. Now, if you're willing to correct the problem where Bigelow is on the neighboring property, that would be the solution, is to go back to almost the end of where it says Bigelow Street, start there, bring it further south, and then tie back into West Holman as soon as we can. There's more cost there because there's curb and gutter involved now. We were building a rural section to match Holman Lakeview, so we didn't include any curb and gutter in that east of the roadway. If we get into Bigelow, I would venture to say we should be putting curb and gutter back in. And that's really why the cost increases once we start getting west of 8th Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Allison, and then Catherine.
I guess I just want to really reiterate that when you say, well, we'll probably have to pull a campsite out of there because it's too close, that again, it's not any closer than her house, which can't be just pulled out. And I mean, and that's where some of this place is going to be there for a few days at a time. I just think, before you go and really pretty much trash where somebody's living
Because that's really,
permanently.
yeah, you're putting a road, even if you're saying you're only taking a smidge of my property, which from my understanding is.
Cost effective, and it seems like it's perfectly needs outside of this temporary situation we have coming up.
Thank you, Catherine, and then Jerry.
Okay, so I was just curious, if you did straighten that out, are you gonna get rid of all the old concrete you're not needing anymore and gravel? Are you gonna put grass there and make it look nice?
You're referring to, if we did this, what would we do with this section?
Yeah,
That would, that would likely be either abandoned or turned into parking or turned into additional park space. We haven't gotten that far yet.
okay.
Jerry? Come on
I'm gonna
down.
I've been sitting there throwing like this.
You're the next contestant.
Okay, I'm Jerry, I'm the Director of Public Works here. Every option you've talked about, we've reviewed. Our initial perspective on this was to straighten Bigelow out, bring it in, and lessen that curve. Ultimately, what we came up with was to try to be financially responsible with this without spending too many tax dollars, because we're already strapped for money. So we were trying to figure out how are we going to get this to happen, stay within our budgets, and make this work. That is how tentatively we came up with this plan. if we straighten Bigelow out and they keep, you know, and we keep emphasizing this, it's gonna cost more. And as Scott said, any other alternative to what, we've given you a couple different alternatives now. But short of what we're saying as far as the north road, we can financially fit that within our budget right now. Anything we do outside that, we would have to borrow money.
Unless we do nothing.
Unless we do nothing, but this is the deal. The reason this was all brought up was we're talking about it. Everybody in that block, including the people that live in there, when they switch that traffic over on Highway 13, I will guarantee you that traffic is gonna back up almost all the way to 13. As soon as those big rigs come in, not so much the semis, but the motorhomes and the trailers, and they try to navigate those bends, it's gonna be a mess. And it's gonna back it up on Holman, all the way back up into town. You're gonna have traffic backed up there, you're gonna have traffic backed up here. We're just trying to find a happy medium to keep this traffic flowing through town so people can transverse, because there are a lot of people who work north of town that have to utilize that traffic, which they may find a different route. So the whole concept behind this is try to get a more even flow and get this traffic into town and get them out, so when they're not coming in and they're sitting there getting frustrated, all they want to do is get out of town. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we're gonna make them sit and look at the lake and decide they wanna come back sometime.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the whole.
Well, and also, I mean, when you're talking about the trailers, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, were you done, Jerry?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, I mean, the whole concept behind what we were doing here is we were trying to get something to help the flow of traffic, to keep things moving, and to try and financially not have to be a burden upon the city or its residents. And what we found in investigating all this and all, everything you're talking about, we've looked at all those options. We've looked at all those options. They were very costly. And the thing about the project we're proposing, and as Scott had mentioned, the city can do some of that work to help ease the burden of the cost. The other projects we're talking about, we are not capable of performing. We don't have the equipment or the resources to do it. So that's how we came up with this. It wasn't, this was the only plan. We looked at it in great depth, talked about it, and attempted to try and, like I said, keep it within a financial situation where we could afford to do it.
Okay, one other point, for you is at the city crew can help with it at the expense of perhaps some other project.
Yes.
Also.
I mean,
So we need to keep that in mind. You're already pressed for getting work done with the staff that you have.
Mhm.
So adding this other project on is something to consider.
Yes. But that's about it. I just wanted to, so everybody understood that this wasn't like just something we came up with. I mean, we've talked and tried to examine it, and basically we came up with the decision was basically financially what could trying to ease that traffic and that flow for that backup for all the people that have to get through town, not only traveling but live here. So
And when you say the decision, you mean the decision to have this come forward as a proposal?
yes.
Okay. Everybody good? Allison, last, and then if we want to close the floor at that time.
Just to make one observation, we're talking about trailers and such, and I don't doubt that will get to industry, but that we're talking about 3 or 3.5 months out of any given year. Like, I mean, it'll be a thing, but that's not a year-round thing.
And they navigate just fine as it is.
So.
I'd like to say one more thing, please.
Okay.
Please.
Yes.
Okay, I drove a truck in Bayfield, a dump truck, and a lowboy for 13 years. Okay, and I can tell you exactly what's going to happen here if you leave your little triangle, or your little thing here. For one thing, a lot of the even campers, even cars, they do not know how to navigate. They don't know what a semi can do. So they will pull right up to that stop sign, and that truck is going to stay right there because he can't move. He can't. He's going to have to make that left turn. Then these cars can't back up anymore because this one guy stopped at the stop sign. They don't know the concept of when you see a truck coming, you stop 30 feet back. They don't do that. I had to put up with that every summer in Bayfield. And that's gonna be your problem.
But you said the trucks primarily have a different route, right?
No, if you're doing deliveries,
It's just deliveries, not every.
like,
not
let's say
every-
the guy brings lumber to Olson. He's got a 48-foot trailer he's gotta pull. And that's what I'm talking about. Even the shorter, the 30-foot. And then that's the problem you're gonna have.
For one season.
For one season to take.
But
away
one
my
season, but
20 yards.
you're gonna have a problem. So that's all I'm saying, you know.
Understood. Anyone?
Yeah, I would like to hear, I mean, I feel like we flitted past the idea of adjusting Bigelow at all because of cost, but that sounded like it was tied to curb and gutter, and I'd like to know if what that would look like, if it still makes it unfeasible, Mike, if you left out the curb and gutter.
Yeah, why curb and gutter, but not the other one?
Because it's existing and you have to replace what's existing?
Generally, the curb and gutter.
There's a storm sewer located within there, and that's all, those underground utilities were put in there for that purpose, and that's why it was curb and gutter. So you take the curb and gutter out, the storm, you're getting the water from the storm sewer collected.
So that's what would have to move to, not just the curb.
And the storm sewer coming to the south, where the curb stops, that actually free flows back down into the drainage along the walking trail. If you take a look down West Bigelow, about where the bend just starts, there's a catch basin right there, and then one across the road. And that water drains from the intersection back to the west along Bigelow, and that's where it's picked up.
So we know that it's more expensive, is kind of the bottom line for anything Bigelow heading west. And we already don't have the money really to do the project to begin with. This is not something that was budgeted. So it is the need for controlling the traffic the best way going to trump, what the council needs to decide. The first, second by Dave, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We can still ask Jerry questions if we need to, or landowner involved. Mayor, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
I'm thinking about making a motion to accept.
Well, there's already a motion on the
the northern
table.
route.
There's already a motion on the table for the northern route to approve it. So that's what the motion is. Mary?
Just if Mike could explain.
Yes.
If Mike could explain one more time the power the DOT has for that.
Mike, do you know?
The power that DOT has for what?
To make that northern route.
Like if we say we don't want to do anything and we're just gonna not do anything, and the DOT says, we think you need to do this, so we're gonna do it.
So the DOT has told us that they will not dictate that it has to be done. Because if they do that, then they have to pay for it, and they won't do that. So they have offered, well, through the paving of West Holman, they will pave this, and as part of the paving of West Holman, they agreed to put the last 12 inches of gravel on here. So by doing this, the DOT is willing to basically do half the project for us almost.
Thank you.
They will at all costs try to, if we don't do anything, they will try to make that those 290-degree turns work. And as they said, traffic will back up, and they it was an interesting conversation today. Let's put it that way.
Karen?
Scott, would you tell me again, what is how close would the northern route be to the existing property owner?
I mean, the edge of the right,
Correct.
of
The right of way? Or,
the shoulder, edge of the shoulder
yes.
to the house?
Mike, are you able to measure that better on your map?
That's what I'm gonna try and do on GIS at this point. I don't have my AutoCAD version open right now.
Is speaking that upper line is just a right of way, right? There's gonna be no activity or changes.
Correct. That upper line is 33 feet from the center line of the proposed roadway.
But the shoulder wouldn't go all the way to the edge of the right of way, correct?
The shoulder would not go that far. So that a 12-foot paved and a 4-foot shoulder, that's 16 feet, and the right of way is 33. So from the edge of the shoulder would be 17 feet to the right of way. And you can see that the right of way along this side of the house is fairly close to about the same distance as the other side of the house, where 8th Avenue is now. So basically the house would become a corner lot.
Right.
But one side really isn't any more impacted than the other.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Funding, I've not seen anything in the notes about there being any. And you're just asking if anyone has any ideas. So that means any of this cost has to be pulled out of.
I think there was an update in an email.
I had sent an update on that on Friday, which outlined the possibilities of how that would be funded.
Sharing.
So as I had stated, if this were to be approved, and the work would commence, we would actually begin working on commencing it right away with the existing mobilized contractor. And we'd be utilizing city materials. It would lessen the amount of materials that we budgeted for alley improvements within the city. Not all, I'm not saying all of it, but it would take a portion of that gravel that we are currently receiving for alley improvements, and we would allocate that to this project. And with the public works staff also doing some of the work and the utilization of the culverts and so forth, we would be taking, to come up with the $35,000, we would be taking some of that out of the stormwater utility, because we are affecting the stormwater basin. We would be taking some of those dollars out of the existing budgeted capital for public works and for the alley improvements, and then some of the budgeted dollars out of the general public works road repair budget. And I had intended, if we had any leftover dollars after the Ironworks project, I was looking to possibly allocate that first. I'm not sure that we're going to have any because they ran into stone. So I can't answer that at this time, but that's, with all those totals, I would have come up with the $35,000. Now, if we do not do this project right away, we don't have the dollars available, and have to come up with other options or sources in the future. The purpose of, if the council wanted to do this and get this work done, we believe that it would be better to do it this year, as soon as possible so that it has a chance to settle over the winter, or the DOT would come next summer and do the final base and asphalt so that the detour route would be ready to go by April of 2024.
Any other questions or comments?
The only thing I would add is that we're not taking property away from anybody. We're
Correct.
putting this on city property.
Is it okay, but, excuse me,
There are,
sorry, just let him.
one of the proposed routes is running through Pine Street and First Street, right, where the traffic was gonna be even closer to homes. And so.
But on existing roads.
Well, sure, yeah, on existing roads, but I mean, other than cost, I don't see an issue of why we can't do this. I mean, I think it would enhance the route, would keep traffic from backing up, and we're not, like I said, we're not taking anything away from anybody. We're putting it on our own property, on the city's property, so, there's no danger. I don't think it doesn't propose any dangerous situations that wouldn't have occurred if we routed the traffic in any other direction. So I'm still in favor of the northern route.
Just to reiterate what Jim said is during the summer when we looked to do a detour, when we were forced to do Washington Avenue, it came from how Chief Johnson said the semi trucks cannot take a turn, and they take up so much space that whether a car or another camper is prepared for it, they physically take up so much space to make a turn that we would be severely corner locked up there just for one semi at a time, whether it's going north or south or east or west. So we allow.
If we don't do this northern road, try to do what we were talking about, trying to widen that out, we're gonna have a safety issue. There's gonna be accidents, and I don't know, if Marty's not here, I know we drove semi, and I did too for a little while, and car gets too close, and I come around the corner, and you don't see it. That's what it sounds like. This is exactly what it sounds like.
No, I would say they wouldn't because they're not a petitioner here. You can move to recognize them. If they're a petitioner, then they have rights.
Understood. Okay, so what I told you before was exactly accurate.
Yes.
Okay. So, sorry, what I told you before was not exactly accurate with, now that the floor is closed, I can't recognize you. Unless you have something that you would like to say, we can make a motion to open the floor again.
If I can just quickly, I guess I would.
Would anyone be open to opening the floor and so the closed? Motion carries. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Kind of way to create a solution. I guess I understood from my initial conversation, or it actually does go onto my property, and I don't know that.
At the map. What we're looking at, and I realize if you want to, if you can't see back there and you want to come a little closer, by all means. So what we're looking at on this map is this line right here would be the center line of what would be the new road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. From this line here to this line here is the paved portion of that road, which would be 24 feet wide. Then there's another thin line that's kind of dashed along here. That's going to be that 4-foot shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
This top line, which is nicking the corner of your property here, so from this top dashed line to this bottom line That's a typical road right-of-way, which is 66 feet. So typically within that right-of-way would be the sidewalks and so forth. So the city would not need to actually have that much right-of-way. It's not standard for us to not do that, but we wouldn't have to actually claim that corner of your property. The proposed paved roadway would not be on your property.
And it doesn't look like then, including that shoulder or right of way that would not be impacted in any visible or physical way. It also wouldn't impact the corner of city property that is even closer, that it will still be, by all visible accounts, that it's maintained as your property.
Yeah.
So,
But the change is, just to be clear, it does vastly change that property because it's a line of trees and then there's the trail and then now you're putting a road fairly close to my house and changes the privacy, changes when you do have other options. And I understand the cost, and you have options that would cost much less. It feels like it's a nonchalant decision that you're coming to based on a seasonal change that's needed and putting in a permanent change without really taking into consideration, I mean, if it was your yard or anybody, you would not be happy about that. Nobody would be. And it's not the only option. And it is a big deal to me. I guess I just want that to be heard. And I feel like that should matter. And I do appreciate your time.
Understood, thank you.
you're heard.
I was gonna say something and now I forgot. Okay, motion to close the floor?
So
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. Have we done any inquiries as to how that would affect the property value of that property in any way, or would it not?
I would have, at this point, there would be no impact of
Lowering the value,
Because,
Raise it,
it raises it because it's as big as a corner lot.
and the trees that are there are gonna be gone, never lake view.
okay,
Can we clarify
Thanks, noted.
the cost of, since I have to say, I have not had access to my email, this month. So, and I have yet to resolve that. So I haven't seen any of it, but, you keep talking about 35,000, but, and all I have is this 97. So,
35 was a resolved number based on the northern route.
So there was a cost estimate that was included in the packet.
that's all.
Since that time, there was a revised cost haggling with the DOT. That to and then based on that, to utilize an opportunity that we have at this time, which would not, for example, be available at the fall, is we are under an active contract right now for another project. We could modify that contract without having to go through a new bid process in order to complete this project, and that's where we would potentially realize those additional savings.
That would bring you down to this 35 years as the real expense
Correct.
that you're pulling from funds that seem feasible for reallocating.
It is, if the council wants to do it, it is the best option I can give you.
So in light of that, and not to take it lightly at all, but, and never to value a potential camping site or whatever over a home, but trying to value the city's goals and their property. it does seem like something that would improve interest in driving that direction in the future, in flow of traffic and use of all the city property in that area. To be able to do that, I would not give up on trying to bump that center line down. And if you could clip off some of that curb, but that's why I would still support it, because I think of the effect it would have on the scenic nature of that drive. That would be very attractive for all visits to and through Washburn, including the obvious improvement on traffic flow.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no other comments, questions, or discussion, the motion on the table is to approve the proposed northern reroute. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Our next item is discussion and action on reallocation of capital dollars for City Hall improvements. This is tab number 4. And this seems like we're kind of at a dead end here, so.
It was a great disappointment.
Yes. So this is to deal with the vermiculite that was discovered when the contractor came to look at doing the HVAC project. Is there a motion on the table for this?
I would move to reallocate dollars to address the vermiculite problem and to address it.
Okay.
Unless we want to add to request additional in next year's capital budget, but it seems to me that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
So
just to reallocate.
To reallocate to address the vermiculite.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Karen, second by Tom. Any questions?
Yeah, that's gonna get rid of all that asbestos?
The vermiculite?
So the proposal is, up there, it's all powder pretty much everywhere on the floor in the attic. And so the process they would come with a vacuum truck, basically,
Right.
vacuum everything. And then they would spray a substance for any particulates that may have been missed to basically kind of hold them in place, yes.
And now, are they gonna do this on a weekend, or is City Hall gonna be closed while they do that? Because you can get severely ill from that stuff.
I would have to communicate with scheduling with them, and there would be concerns related to that, and so I would seek to find an appropriate day, or probably a Monday or Friday, if we were going to close. So.
Or could we just use the other entrance temporarily for a day and seal it off somehow?
The other entrance in the back is where is the access to the attic, where they would actually be parked back there to do the work.
If I remember correctly, this is all have to have that plastic to keep it from hitting the floor.
I'm not sure of those details and how they would be doing that, so.
They're mandating things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hang in there, AC. Okay, our next item is discussion and action on resolution 22-004, approving the 2021 compliance Maintenance Annual Report for the Sewer Utility. And may I start off this item by saying, excellent job to our city staff over at the water utility. Very impressive.
I would move approval of resolution 22-004, approving the 2021 compliance maintenance annual report.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Mary. Are there any questions, comments, or discussions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good job.
Next item, discussion and action on special event request to have temporary intermittent closures along West 4th Street from 8th Avenue West to 5th Avenue West on June 19th, 2022 for Washburn Challenge Road Race. Dave Wilcox, petitioner, tab 6 in your packet.
I would move to approve, but again, that he needs to clarify everything with Ken Johnson.
Sure. Motion by Mary to approve upon approval by the police. Oh, he has.
I'll second it.
Motion by, second by Tom, and it does say the police chief.
Yeah, I see that. I just, yeah.
Okay, excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and action on special event request to have temporary closures of 3rd Avenue West from Bayfield Street to the alley along with Dal Park on July 2nd, 2022 for Dandelion Days.
So
Michael, petitioner, we have motion by Mary.
Second.
Second by Karen. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and action on approval of annual alcohol license renewals. Tab 8 in your packet.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of all alcohol licensing as presented in the packet.
So, I mean, I've got second.
Motion by Karen, second by Mary. Any questions? Scott?
I just want to clarify what's exactly, I have a chance today to ask. Are all issues taken care of and you're satisfied with the language on all of the licenses? I know we have not addressed the beer garden issue yet.
Yes, I'm satisfied.
Okay.
I have one question.
Tom?
That stage north. I thought we were talking about this in this last meeting before last. If they don't continually stay open for 6 months, we can pull that license. Is that correct?
So, yes, that is correct. And we have not been enforcing that because of COVID. However, I believe with these renewals, the memo will go out reminding people that that will now be enforced, since we do have more demand for licenses than there are licenses.
There's the restaurant that did.
Actually, while we're on questions, I have a question. I believe I saw Stage North Bar being the applicant, and now is there a new business involved in that? And does that come into play? It's called like the Bell Tower?
New managers.
So just new managers?
I think
They're calling it something.
Oh, well, least.
I think they're leasing.
Yes.
They're leasing the space. Can they do that?
I would need to check into that. That maybe not.
No, somebody said it was his daughter and his
Yeah.
boyfriend.
Yeah, but they're calling it a different business name, so I was just confused about that, so I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay, well, the license will be issued to the Stage North Bar, which is what's on there.
So what they
If
call it
are
on
another
Facebook
business,
could be
and they do
something
not
else.
have that license, that would be something I would need to clarify with the owner and the licensee.
Okay, so just maybe note that that should be clarified.
Okay.
Anything else? Seeing nothing, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Recording stopped.
or stage door? No, it's like the bell tower of the bar or something.